Story 1. The Vanishing Girl at the Supermarket. It was an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, the kind where nothing unusual was supposed to happen. Ollie had left work a bit early, planning to grab some bread and eggs before heading home. The neighborhood supermarket, just a 5-minute walk away, was a place he had visited hundreds of times. He knew every aisle, every corner, every cashier by face. As he strolled in, the soft hum of fluorescent lights filled the air. A familiar jingle played faintly in the background. Nothing seemed out of place. Until he reached aisle 3. There, near the breakfast cereals, stood a little girl. She couldn't have been older than 6. Her hair was tied in 2 neat braids, and she wore a faded yellow dress with frills at the sleeves. In her hands, she tightly clutched a worn-out teddy bear, missing one eye. But what struck Ollie the most was her stare. She wasn't looking at the shelves. She wasn't crying or calling out for her parents. She was just standing there, staring straight at him, unblinking, frozen. At first, Ollie assumed she was lost. He glanced around casually, expecting to see a panicked parent nearby. But the aisle was empty. The store was unusually quiet for that hour. He smiled awkwardly and turned his head to the shelf to grab a loaf of bread. Not more than 2 seconds passed. When he turned back, she was gone. No footsteps, no sound, no rustling of clothes, nothing. Ollie rushed to the end of the aisle, looked left, right, walked down the adjacent ones, checked near the checkout counters. Nothing. He approached one of the staff members. "Hey, I just saw a little girl in aisle 3, yellow dress, teddy bear. Do you know where she went?" The staffer frowned. "Sir, I don't recall any child in that section. It's been quiet for a while. Can you check the cameras?" Ollie asked, unease creeping into his voice. The manager obliged. They rewound the CCTV footage. And there it was, Ollie walking into aisle 3, looking around, picking up a loaf of bread. But no girl. Not even a shadow. Not even a flicker. Ollie's heart sank. Was he hallucinating? Tired? He tried to forget about it, until a week later. A post popped up in the local community Facebook group. "Has anyone else seen the little girl in the yellow dress at the supermarket, holding a teddy bear? She looked off, like she was flickering, like she didn't belong there." Dozens of people started replying. Some said they'd seen her too, never moving, always staring. Some swore she vanished the moment they blinked, but no one ever saw her enter or leave the store. The creepiest part: the girl matched the description of a child who had gone missing in that same neighborhood 6 years ago. Same age, same dress, same teddy bear. The case was never solved. And now, she appears for mere seconds in aisle 3, watching, waiting, glitching. Story 2. The looping door in the school corridor. It was the final week before midterms, and the computer lab at Mariam's college was buzzing with late-night project panic. Mariam, a quiet but brilliant student, had stayed back to finalize her thesis presentation. By the time she was done, the corridors outside had gone silent, and most of the lights in the building had been dimmed. She glanced at the time. 7:32 p.m. A little late, but not too strange. She packed her laptop, zipped her bag, and stepped out of the lab into the long, empty corridor. The building, like most old campuses, had a certain aura at night, that cold, slightly humid stillness, like the walls were watching. Miriam didn't mind though. She walked these halls often and knew them well. She turned toward the main exit, and that's when she heard it. Kriya. She paused. It came from the chemistry lab, a door slowly swinging open just a few feet ahead. The same lab known for being locked tight after 6 p.m. She glanced at the room. The lights were off. No one was inside. Just rows of tables, Bunsen burners, and shadows. She hesitated for a second, then shook her head and kept walking. 10 steps later. Kriuk. She stopped again. The same door, still swinging open. She turned around fully this time, confused. She had just passed the lab, but somehow she was standing in front of it again. She looked back. The hallway was different. The old vending machine that should have been at the end, gone. The mural of famous scientists that was always on the right wall, missing. Her stomach tightened. Maybe she had taken a wrong turn? She started walking again, faster this time. But within seconds, she passed the same lab again. Same door, half open. Same faint flickering light above. Same chill crawling up her spine. She tried turning back, running the opposite way. But every time she stopped, she ended up back in front of that same creaking door. Like the corridor was looping. Panic set in. She checked her phone. No service. No Wi-Fi. No clock. She tried calling her friend Aisha. The call failed. The contact name glitched on the screen, flickering into unreadable characters before vanishing completely. Her breathing grew shallow. She banged on the classroom doors, screamed for help, but her voice echoed back, distorted, as if she were yelling into a metal tunnel. Then the lights began to dim. Not like turning off, more like being swallowed by static. Desperate, Miriam closed her eyes tight. She whispered to herself, voice trembling, "I want to go home. Please. I want to go home." Silence. Then, cool air. A breeze. Distant car horns. She opened her eyes and found herself standing outside the college gates, her bag still on her shoulder, her laptop still in hand. The sun had just set. Everything looked normal, except for one thing. When she checked her phone again, the time was still 7:32 p.m. She never found out what happened in that hallway. She never told anyone the full story. But from that day on, Miriam never stayed on campus after dark. And the chemistry lab, well, if you pass by late at night, you might still hear the creaking door. Just don't open it. Story 3. The mirror in the calf washroom. There was something oddly comforting about Calf Arif, tucked away in a quiet corner of the city. Dim hanging lights, the warm aroma of cinnamon and espresso, indie jazz humming in the background. It quickly became a second home for students, freelancers, and book lovers alike. But there was one thing about the calf that no one ever talked about, until it started talking back. It began with Junaid, a regular. He came in every evening, ordered a caramel latte, and worked on his novel in the corner seat by the window. One particular rainy Thursday, he excused himself to use the washroom. The place was clean, well lit, with soft yellow tiles and a sleek mirror above the sink. but something about the mirror felt off. He finished washing his hands and casually glanced up to check his hair. He waved instinctively at himself, a silly habit. The reflection waved back, but not immediately. There was a lag, not like a slow video or glitchy screen, more like hesitation, like the reflection was thinking, processing. Junaid froze, rubbed his eyes, blinked, tried it again. Wave. Pause. Then the reflection waved. He leaned in, just inches from the glass. That's when it happened. The reflection suddenly smiled. But Junaid didn't. His face was still tense. But in the mirror, his double smiled calmly, as if it knew something he didn't. The expression held for a beat too long, a fraction too wide. The kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. Panicked, Junaid took a step back. But the reflection stayed close to the glass for a moment longer, watching. He stumbled out of the washroom, heart racing, the air around him feeling colder than before. He didn't tell anyone, afraid he'd sound ridiculous. Maybe he was just tired. Maybe it was his imagination. But over the next week, other customers began whispering. A girl at the counter told her friend, "I swear I saw myself blink in the mirror before I actually did." A young man claimed his reflection looked older, with faint wrinkles he didn't have, and when he touched his face in real life, they weren't there. A barista eventually confessed she'd stopped using that mirror entirely. It feels like something's trapped in there, and it wants out. The owner, Farah, brushed off the rumors at first. But when the cafe's CCTV caught something disturbing, a recording of a customer standing frozen in front of the mirror for 10 full minutes, completely still while their reflection moved on its own. She had the mirror taken down overnight. No explanation. No announcement. Just gone. And yet, even after its removal, a few patrons swore they saw a faint outline in the wall where the mirror used to be. Like a stain, a shadow. Some say it's still watching. So next time you step into a calf washroom, take a moment, look at your reflection, and ask yourself, what if the thing in the mirror isn't just copying you? What if it's waiting to replace you? Story 4. The elevator that skips floors. In the heart of Lahore's business district, there's a high-rise office tower known simply as Tower 7. Modern, sleek, and efficient, it's home to startups, law firms, and tech companies. During the day, it's a place of ambition, buzzing with keyboards, coffee, and corporate chaos. But after 9 p.m., something changes. The hallways go silent. The lights dim ever so slightly, flickering in places no electrician can seem to fix. And worst of all, the elevator develops a mind of its own. Most employees, especially the night shift IT guys and cleaning crew, avoid the elevators after 9. Not because they're superstitious, but because too many people have stories. And all the stories say the same thing. The elevator starts stopping on a floor that doesn't exist. It was first noticed by a finance intern named Hassan. He was working late, trying to finish a report to impress his boss. Around 9:17 p.m., he packed his things and headed to the elevator. He pressed G for ground. The elevator began descending. 12, 11, 10. Then the lights flickered. The screen blinked, glitching between floors. Then, 13. There was no button for 13. Everyone knew the building had only 12 floors. It was even in the blueprints. But the elevator stopped. The doors opened. At first glance, it looked like another office floor. Same gray carpets. Same pale fluorescent lights. But it was quiet. Unnaturally quiet. No humming electronics. No vents. No sound of distant typing. Just a humming tone. Low, constant, almost mechanical. Curious and stupidly brave, Hassan stepped out. The elevator doors shut behind him. He walked down the corridor. The offices had names of companies no one had ever heard of. Morphix Innovations. Department of Time. Subject Review 21A. The air felt thick, like walking through static. Then he saw something, or someone, sitting at a desk in one of the glass offices. It was him. Same clothes. Same hairstyle. Same tired eyes. His double looked up and smiled. Hassan ran back, slammed the elevator button over and over. When the doors finally opened, he leapt in. The screen showed G, but for a split second, before the doors closed, he saw his double watching from the hallway, smiling. He didn't sleep for days. He told his coworkers. They laughed at first. Then more stories emerged. A janitor, Shabazz, went missing for 3 days. No one could find him. No security footage. No sign of where he went. When he finally reappeared, he was found sitting outside the building's back door, disheveled, shaking, and whispering nonsense. The only clear thing he said before he was taken to therapy: "There's someone living on the 13th floor, but they're wearing your face." He never returned to work. Since then, employees have made a silent pact. Never use the elevator after 9 p.m. They take the stairs, even if it's 12 floors, even if they're exhausted. Because once the elevator decides to take you to floor 13, it doesn't always bring you back the same. And if it does, who says it's really you? Story 5. The glitched pedestrian in the park. Every Sunday, like clockwork, a man jogs around Model Town Park in Lahore. Same time. Same path. Same clothes. A navy tracksuit with a faded logo on the back. Same pace. Every single week. People call him the looping jogger. He doesn't talk, doesn't nod, doesn't acknowledge anyone. Just runs. One long, perfect loop. Most folks who walk their dogs, bring their kids, or come to jog themselves barely notice him anymore. He's just part of the background, familiar, harmless, until you look closer. Fahad, a 17-year-old film student, was the first to notice. He liked to spend his Sundays filming short nature videos in the park. Leaves in slow motion, birds on benches, things like that. One day, out of curiosity, he decided to film the jogging man. Mostly because the guy never missed a Sunday, and his rhythm was almost robotic. He zoomed in, captured the man's steady pace, the arms swinging at the same angle, the feet hitting the ground at perfect intervals. When Fahad reviewed the footage at home, the man's face was nothing but blurred static, not motion blur, not out of focus. It looked like corrupted pixels, a scrambled mask of noise. Frame by frame, it was the same. Even when the rest of the scene was sharp, benches, trees, background joggers, The man's face remained an unchanging block of glitch. Fahad showed his friends. Some laughed. Some got uneasy. Then came the second video. Fahad returned the following Sunday to test the theory. This time, he brought a DSLR with a stabilizer and followed the man around the park loop, matching his path exactly. Everything was going fine until the third lap. Suddenly, mid-stride, the jogger tripped, but instead of falling, he froze mid-air, legs bent, arms mid-swing, like a paused game character, hovering. Then, with a blink of distortion, he snapped back upright in the standing position. No dust on his clothes, no signs of imbalance, just a reset. Fahad gasped, looked around. Nobody else reacted. Kids kept playing. Old men kept walking. A dog barked lazily at a butterfly. It was like no one else saw it. Fahad turned to a nearby park guard and asked, "Who is that guy?" The guard looked over and shrugged. "You mean the guy who jogs and never sweats?" "Yeah, he's been around for years. No one's ever talked to him. We don't even know when he comes or leaves. Just loops." Fahad never filmed him again. He hasn't returned to the park since. But the jogger, still there, every Sunday. Same loop, same step, same glitch in the corner of reality. And if you ever decide to visit Model Town Park and see him for yourself, be careful not to make eye contact. Some say if he looks back at you, you might start looping too. Story 6. The Man Who Answers the Library Phone. University libraries are strange places after dark. By day, they're full of footsteps, whispers, and the rustle of pages. But by night, they transform. The echoes grow louder. The silence thickens. The shadows stretch a little longer than they should. Sana, a soft-spoken literature major and part-time library assistant, often stayed late after closing hours to sort archived books and prepare the next day's logs. It was a Wednesday, ordinary in every way. The rain outside tapped against the massive glass windows, and the yellow desk lamps gave the rows of bookshelves a warm, golden glow. She was alone. Or so she thought. At 10:45 p.m., as she was placing a worn-out encyclopedia on a top shelf, she heard something she hadn't heard in years. The sharp ring of a rotary telephone. It came from the main reception desk, an antique phone mounted in a corner under a glass case. It hadn't been in use for years. In fact, the phone line had been officially disconnected in 2009, replaced by a modern intercom system. But it was ringing. Loud, crisp, unmistakable. Sana's heart skipped. She waited. 1 ring. 2. 3. Then she stepped slowly toward it, drawn in by a mix of curiosity and dread. She reached the phone. It was vibrating slightly on the desk, the old-school brass receiver shivering with each ring. Almost expectant. Against her better judgment, she picked it up, and on the other end, a man whispered, "Say, Chichi, you're not supposed to be here." The voice was low, cold, almost metallic, not threatening but not human either. Like someone trying to sound normal and failing. Then, click. Dial tone. Frozen in place, Sana stood there for a few seconds, the receiver still at her ear. Her hands trembled as she slowly set it back on the cradle. The silence afterward was deafening. too still, as if the library itself was holding its breath. She grabbed her bag and rushed downstairs to the security office. Her voice was shaky as she explained what happened. The guard, an older man who'd worked there for years, simply nodded. Calmly. Too calmly. "You heard the old phone, didn't you?" he said as he sipped his chai. Sana blinked, confused. "But it's disconnected." He looked at her, unblinking. "It is. Has been since 2009. But you're not the first to hear it." "What do you mean?" "We've had incidents. Staff on night duty. Students staying too late. The phone rings. They answer. Always the same message. You're not supposed to be here. Then something strange happens." Sana leaned in. "Like what?" The guard glanced at the cameras behind him. One was focused on the reception area. A frozen frame showed Sana holding the phone, but there was no phone on the desk in the footage. Just her hand raised mid-air, gripping nothing. She never worked after 9 p.m. again. Others who have heard the phone, some quit, some transferred, and one went missing, last seen walking into the basement archive, which has remained locked ever since. No one knows who the voice belongs to. No wire is connected. No record of the number exists. But the phone? It still rings. Sometimes just once. Sometimes until someone picks up. And if you ever find yourself alone in an old library at night, and a phone that shouldn't work starts to ring, don't answer. Because if he tells you you're not supposed to be there, you probably aren't. Story 7. The frozen time at the petrol pump. Bilal wasn't expecting anything strange that night. He'd been driving back from a friend's place in the outskirts of Lahore, the roads quiet and blanketed in fog. Music played softly from his car's stereo, the kind that keeps you company when the rest of the world is asleep. It was 2:13 a.m., according to the digital clock on his dashboard. Low on fuel, he pulled into a petrol pump he'd passed a dozen times before but never used. It was open, lights glowing faintly, an attendant already walking toward his window. Bilal rolled it down slightly. "Full, please," he said, half yawning. The attendant nodded and turned to grab the nozzle. And that's when it happened. Bilal blinked once, just a casual, tired blink. But when he opened his eyes, everything had stopped. Complete silence. The attendant was frozen mid-step, one foot suspended above the ground. The fuel nozzle dangled in the air, motionless. The lights, once flickering gently, now flickered and froze mid-flicker, stuck between on and off. Even the air felt wrong. It wasn't quiet. It was too quiet, like someone had muted the world. Bilal called out, "Bye." No answer. He tried again, louder. Still nothing, only a strange, muffled echo of his own voice, like it was being played back through a broken speaker. It didn't sound human. He slowly stepped out of the car, the door creaking unnaturally loud in the stillness. The entire station was frozen. The guy mopping the floor inside the shop, motionless. The man browsing snacks, mid-reach, his fingers hovering over a packet of chips. Even the cars on the road outside were locked in place, headlights casting light that didn't spread, like beams frozen in midair. Bilal moved through it all cautiously, like walking through a wax museum built in the middle of a dream. Then, just as he reached the edge of the station, trying to figure out what was happening. He heard it. A click. Soft, deliberate, like the sound of a keyboard key being pressed. Enter. Instantly, the world snapped back to life. The mopper's bucket clattered. The lights resumed flickering. The attendant walked again as if nothing had happened, nozzle in hand. Bilal stood still, his heart racing. The noise of engines, fans, and background chatter all crashed back into his ears like a wave. The strangest part, the clock on his dashboard and on the pump's digital display still read 2:13 m. He didn't ask questions. He didn't speak. Just paid and drove off, his mind racing faster than his car. Later, he tried to rationalize it. Sleep deprivation, a micro-dream, some sort of blackout. But he knew deep down it wasn't a dream. He wasn't asleep. Someone had paused reality, like the world was just a program, and he had seen behind the curtain for a split second. Now, whenever he drives late at night and passes a petrol station, he can't help but glance at the clock. If it ever says 2:13 a.m. again, he's not stopping. Story 8. The wrong reflection in the gym. Zara was a creature of habit. She worked a full-time job, juggled freelance gigs on the side, and the only time she truly felt free was during her evening workouts. The gym became her sanctuary, a place where the chaos of the world melted into the rhythm of her reps and the pulse of her earbuds. Every evening around 7:30 p.m., she'd hit the weights in the corner section, the one facing the massive wall-length mirror. It helped her correct her form, stay focused, and track her progress. But on one particular evening, something felt wrong. She had just finished her third set of dumbbell shoulder presses. Her muscles ached in the best way. She paused to catch her breath, letting the weights fall gently to her sides, and looked up at her reflection. That's when she noticed it. Her reflection was breathing harder than she was. Zara stood still, completely still, but the girl in the mirror was still moving, slightly, inhaling and exhaling faster, chest rising and falling in uneven rhythm. Not frantic, just wrong. She tilted her head to the left. Her reflection tilted right. Zara froze. Sweat trickled down her back, not from exertion, but from sudden ice-cold fear. She raised her right hand. Slowly, the reflection responded, but a half-second too late. A hesitation, like it had to think about what to do next. And then, it smiled, but not the way Zara would smile. The mouth opened wider than it should have, lips stretched, teeth just a little too even, the kind of smile that looks learned, not felt. Zara did not smile. She dropped her dumbbells with a loud thud, the echo ringing across the room like a warning bell. Without a second thought, she backed away from the mirror and bolted for the exit. Heart pounding, she reached the front desk, trying to sound calm. "Hey, did you guys install new mirrors recently?" The staff member, a young guy chewing gum lazily, looked up and raised an eyebrow. "Mirrors? Oh, you mean the ones in the free weights room? We took those down weeks ago. They cracked during renovations. That's just polished steel now." Zara blinked. "Excuse me? Yeah, no actual mirrors there anymore. just reflective panels. They're not even clear. You can't really see yourself in them properly. Kind of warped, right? Zara's mouth went dry. She'd seen herself in full detail, watching, smiling, mimicking imperfectly. So what had she been looking at? What was mimicking her in that not mirror? That night, she didn't sleep. She kept thinking about how the reflection had smiled first, how it seemed so eager, as if it had been waiting. The next day, she canceled her membership. To this day, she avoids mirrors in public places, especially the ones that look just a little too perfect, because deep down, she knows. She wasn't looking at her reflection. She was looking at something else, something pretending to be her. And it almost got it right. Story 9. The bus that arrives early, too early. It was a cold, foggy Tuesday morning in Lahore. The kind where the streets feel softer, more distant, like they're being swallowed by the mist. Rehan stood at his usual bus stop, bundled up in a jacket, clutching a thermos of chai. He had taken this route to work for the past 4 years. The bus always arrived at exactly 7:15 a.m. Never early, never late. But that morning felt wrong. The fog was too thick, as if it had weight. The streetlights flickered unnaturally, and the silence was so complete that even the distant honks and early morning traffic were absent, like the world had been turned down. He glanced at the digital display board above the stop. Next bus. Route 47 arrived, 6:06 a.m. Rehan frowned. 6:06, but his watch said 7:10 a.m. And his phone, synced to the network time, showed 7:10 as well. He looked around. No one else was there. Usually, there were at least a few commuters. But today, he was alone. Then, a bus pulled up. Same route. Same number. Route 47. It hissed quietly as it stopped. But there was no engine hum. No sound of brakes. Just a soft mechanical whirring, like a recording on loop. The doors slid open with a hollow click. And Rehan froze. The driver was there, but he didn't look right. His face was pale, too pale, lips bluish, skin waxy, unmoving, eyes wide open, but unfocused. He stared straight ahead, hands fixed on the wheel. Rehan leaned slightly to look into the bus. The passengers inside were all facing forward, unmoving, not asleep, not reading, not breathing, just sitting, still, lifeless. Their faces blurred slightly by the fogged windows, yet strangely familiar. He took a cautious step back. The bus waited. The driver didn't move, didn't blink, just sat there, like a mannequin waiting for a command. Then one of the passengers, a woman near the middle, turned her head ever so slightly toward Rehan, and though her eyes remained forward, her lips moved. Just one word. He couldn't hear it, but he could read it. Don't. He didn't. The door closed, and without a sound, the bus pulled away. No rumble, no smoke. It vanished into the fog like it was never there. When Rehan reached work, his colleagues joked about his dazed expression. But something gnawed at him. Later that day, he requested the CCTV footage from the city transit department, claiming he'd witnessed a possible mechanical error. He waited as the technician scrubbed through the morning feed from his bus stop. 6 a.m. 6:15. 7 o'clock. 7:20. Nothing. No bus ever arrived. Not at 6:06. Not at 7:15. The camera simply showed him standing there, alone, staring down an empty road. Rehan takes a different route to work now. He walks. And he never waits at bus stops alone, especially not in the fog. Because somewhere out there, Route 47 still runs. But it doesn't follow time. It follows something else. And if you ever see a bus arrive early, with empty streets and a still driver, don't get on. You might not come back. Story 10. The repeating stranger at the pharmacy. There's a quiet little pharmacy on a corner street, the kind you'd only notice if you lived nearby. Reliable, friendly, ordinary. Or at least, that's what everyone thought. Until the repeating stranger showed up. It started subtly. One of the clerks, a deal, was closing up one evening when he happened to glance at the security monitor. It was 6:23 p.m. He watched as a man walked in, neatly dressed in a brown jacket and blue jeans. Average height. Nothing unusual. The man walked straight to aisle 4, browsed for a few seconds, accidentally knocked over a small red bottle, picked it up, placed it back neatly, and exited the store without buying anything. Strange? Yes, but not alarming. Until it happened again. The next evening, at exactly 6:23 p.m., the same man walked in. Same jacket. Same jeans. Same aisle. Same red bottle. Same casual exit. By the third day, the owner, Mr. Javed, started paying attention. He reviewed the CCTV footage, timestamp by timestamp. Exact same routine. Not similar, identical. Every motion, every head turn, every blink, every single step. It was as if someone had recorded a short clip of this man and hit replay. On the 6th day, Mr. Javed decided to confront him. At 6:20, he waited behind the counter, eyes locked on the door. And right on cue, 6:23 p.m., the door chimed. The man entered, calm, unbothered. He moved to aisle 4, reached for a bottle and let it slip. It bounced softly on the shelf below. He bent down, picked it up. Mr. Javed stepped forward. "Excuse me," he called out, forcing a calm tone. "Can I help you with something?" The man slowly turned to face him. His eyes were glassy. His expression blank, but not confused. Then he smiled faintly, like someone who had practiced smiling but didn't fully understand why, and said, "I'm just doing what I was programmed to do." Then he turned around, walked out the front door, and vanished before his feet touched the pavement. Mr. Javed ran out after him, breath stuck in his chest. Nothing. No footsteps. No figure turning the corner. No one even nearby. The sidewalk was empty. The next day, he called the police. They arrived, reviewed the footage. Javed told them to pay close attention to the red bottle falling. But as they watched the recordings, the bottle never fell. Not once. In the video, the man walked to aisle 4, stood silently, then walked out. No bottle drop, no gesture, just stillness. And then it got worse. When they tried to extract the clip, the footage glitched. frames repeated themselves. The timestamp flickered. The man's face distorted into a blur of static, frame after frame. Finally, the file corrupted completely. The officers asked Javed when the man first came in. He realized. He couldn't remember. It felt like the man had always been showing up at 6:23 p.m. Like he was part of the store itself. And now, he doesn't come in anymore. But every evening, right at 6:23 p.m., the motion sensor beeps. The aisle security light turns on. And the red bottle? It sometimes ends up on the floor.